Netflix has been in the news lately because we're seeing a lot of weird moves. Their stock plummeted, if you were paying attention. And I will tell you, this is I think we're watching a brand struggle for air.
Mm.
You know, this is well, let's talk about it. This is something that started out as a subscription service for DVDs that you could rent, which put Blockbuster out of business and Hollywood Video and the like. And then they were the first to introduce streaming movies with a paid subscription that was $8.99 a month. It was affordable. And then they started making their own series. They got me with Arrested Development when they brought that back for a fourth season. And that was how a lot of us started paying for Netflix. Then they introduced the Netflix binge. They started making incredibly addictive content. But Mags, what does Netflix think they are? What is their content strategy? And what do you think is the struggle they're dealing with right now in terms of the stuff they make?
So yeah, you sort of started it very nicely. And I think we should start from in the past to kind of talk about present, just to kind of understand what's happening. So Netflix put years into like their battle with having streaming services being recognized and sort of, you know, accepted by the, oh my goodness, by the, not community, industry.
The industry.
Jesus.
Okay,
and
sure,
public,
yeah.
yes, just because they had to fight with traditional theaters and their releases and stuff. So for streaming services to even land on the map, that was all thanks to Netflix. So let's not forget that's essentially, we have everything else because of them.
They were pioneers.
Exactly, because they figured some things out, such as how to take movie stars or filmmakers or even whole genres like romantic comedies or westerns and turn them into success. Yes. Just like finding those kind of special things. So as you already mentioned, for you was Arrested Development. For me, it was House of Cards. That one was
House of Cards was also good for a season. And
exactly
this is what, for some reason, Netflix is losing money, it's losing subscribers, and it's losing people's interest. What do you think is the story there?
So yeah, we had, but let me continue on the thing, because I think Netflix deserved that. Netflix deserved a praise because we had Stranger Things, we had Dark, recently we had Bridgerton. All those series were big. However, the problem is Netflix would actually have to release series like this, like Stranger Things or Dark or Arrested Development, every single month in order for them to continue the growth.
Right.
They essentially put themselves into like on this unrealistic pace that it's hard for them to keep the demand keep the demand satisfied, essentially.
I want to
so what do they have?
Sorry, I don't want to come across as interrupting, but I have a problem. Okay, so not a problem, but let me point something out here, right? So
how about I present everything and then you guys can rip it apart?
Okay.
Because I have like this whole, it all makes sense, okay? And I'm sure I probably answer your thing.
It's not going to be long here.
Exactly.
All right.
There is, and it's gonna all make sense. So what do we have left? We have reality TV, we have children's entertainment.
Yeah.
But you know, people are taking their businesses elsewhere. So what's happening? We have a lot of series and things that are pretty much similar to one another. So just because one show works doesn't mean people will like the same stuff being repeated over and over, just in different genres, different things. That's why, you know, with already like a way overwhelming number of content on HBO Max or Disney Plus or Apple TV, it's very, very difficult to keep an appeal. But yeah, we have Netflix known for, you know, having produced those amazing Oscar buzzworthy gems like You know, they started with Roma, The Irishman, even Marriage Story was pretty good.
Well,
But
here's my
if you
here's
think
my
so,
the-
but if last point.
okay.
If they spend, 200 million on Red Notice recently, and that has given us pretty much like no interest from the public. I mean, no, it was viewed, but it was ripped apart by critics and by Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. And it is to this day the most expensive film produced. And then we had Irishman being, second closest, which was it was like 150 million. But then we had Oscar winner this year, Coda, which only spent $10 million on their film. Putting Netflix completely in their closet, back in the closet. They've started wasting a lot of money because they stuck to their machine essentially, which started failing. You cannot keep producing the same content over and over. You need to start getting original, which, as we discussed earlier with all the silverware films, that's kind of becoming a trend. But yeah, I rest my case. That's the content.
Well,
No.
as long as we're talking about the content, they've been trying to establish themselves as Oscar-worthy movies, but they've fallen short a number of times. And I think they lost a lot of money on Don't Look Up. And a huge amount of that budget went to getting Meryl Streep, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jonah Hill, Jennifer Lawrence. By all rights, incredible performers. Adam McKay, a great writer and director, but it didn't perform the way that they wanted it to. And I think a lot of Netflix content can leave a lot to be desired. I know, Dan, that was one of your criticisms, wasn't it?
Dan, you're on mute.
Sorry.
You're good.
Okay, here's my point. So I go to Netflix and basically on most cases I spend, unless I'm going with a very specific purpose for like a specific show, for like, hey, Stranger Things is out, and I'll go and watch Stranger Things. But at any other time, which the majority of the time you're going on Netflix, you're like, okay, let's see what's there. Gotta fill some time, or like, yeah, gotta end the night, watch something.
Right.
And I just spend too much time trying to look for something to watch rather than actually watching something. And it's the paradox of choice, I think, that's working against them. And that ties into what I was trying to mention earlier was, Mags, you said they need to put out so many things to compete with Disney Plus, but we were talking about, or like, HBO Max or whatever, but we were talking about Moon Knight just a short while ago on the show. And Moon Knight is currently the only premium series that's running on Disney Plus. There's nothing else on that level. So like you see that once a week, and then you come back to the next episode the following Wednesday, right? Like it's every week you get one. Halo on Paramount Plus.
My point was they have to put something as big as Moon Knight every month.
No. So okay, so hold on. So this is what I mean, right? So Bridgerton, Squid Game. What was the one about the chess player? I'm forgetting the name of that.
Queen's
Gambit.
Queen's Gambit. Stranger Things. Those are all shows that at the height of their, like, even the is Ozark on Netflix or is that Hulu?
Yeah.
Ozark, yeah. Even Ozark. Like these are a lot of shows that are at the peak, like when they're out, like they're the shits. Like people are talking about it. Squid Game was the biggest show in the world for a little while, right? But the problem with Netflix is that when those shows are on, like they put that show all at once. Like they either drop it in big chunks or they drop it in all at once. So what happens is people binge it, then they talk about it for those couple of days that the show is out, and then after that they forget about the show. So like Moon Knight is dropping episodes for 6 weeks in a row because they got 6 episodes, they're doing one a week. Whereas with Netflix, Bridgerton, the whole season, boom, gone. You see it on Friday, by the Monday most people have seen it, all the reviews are out, everybody's talking about it. If you haven't seen it, you might have been spoiled by something, and then you just move on and you're waiting for the next thing. Whereas with the other streaming services, they realize, like, if you just give it to him one episode at a time, maybe 2 episodes premiere, and then it keeps it within the cultural zeitgeist. And I think that's Netflix's problem. It's not their output or even the quality of output, it's their marketing and distribution strategy that really hurts them. Like that to me is the biggest thing.
I don't know if that's necessarily their marketing's fault. That's more distribution than anything. I do agree it's creating this binge culture that is not healthy whatsoever. but their marketing is actually pretty on point. They have so many different forms of marketing that they do. I mean, Twitter alone, they have at least 10 counts just for Netflix, all, targeting different types of demographics, different types of target audience. And that's not even including all of the accounts they have for each individual show.
Exactly.
They're reposting, people's memes, their comments, this and that, just ordinary people to make it kind of like, hey, maybe if we tweet
We're
about this.
approachable.
Well,
Yeah.
To talk about the number of accounts, like Twitter marketing is really sketchy these days because companies will create fake accounts and boost with fake comments like, oh, I love this show. I love the part when blah, blah, blah. And it's like written to be, clickbait so that people end up like, oh, a lot of people are talking about it. It's Netflix talking about Netflix, or Twitter talking about Twitter, or, Pepsi talking about Pepsi, or SNL talking about SNL. It's like, where are the real reviews? Where are the reviews that, aren't favorable? It'd be interesting if they highlighted those every once in a while. But
I mean,
from
but even then, it's like with all the viral marketing or kind of thing they do, it just because they have so much stuff coming out, they simply can't give everything the kind of attention and money that, like, for example, a Sony movie would get, because they're like, this is the thing that we're putting out right now. Whereas Netflix is always putting out the thing, but 10 of them, So it's always,
well,
you
I
have to
guess
divide
maybe
up the dollars.
Maybe that's one of the weak points in their marketing, is that rather than marketing, the movie, which for Don't Look Up, that was an Oscar contender. They had to put it out in theaters for that to be the case. There were billboards for it, but the product that they are marketing is Netflix, and the product there is choice of anything you could possibly want, niche content, too many choices, an algorithm that will tell you, we know what you like and we're going to give it to you. And on top of that, this is Netflix is selling Netflix. It's always selling itself, not necessarily the content or a particular thing. And I think that's part of why it's so hard to choose. When you get to that menu, you spend 20, 30 minutes just being like, no. And by that point, I'm already into a different app.
And I disagree about the comment about niche content though, Andrew, because that's the thing. You're being recommended things that you can sort of relate to what you've already watched. And we all know people will always go for something familiar. There's very few people that go for something experimental or provocative. So the niche content, I feel like it's being pushed to the back seat, and it's hard for them to promote that kind of content. Yeah.
Well, if we could, I'd like to just sort of pivot to why this is an issue and other problems with the business strategy, because we are losing subscribers. That's what we're seeing there. And it's one of the ways that they want to remedy this is by getting rid of people who share accounts across multiple households. And that to me is tone deafness to your audience. It's saying, listen, we need everybody to pay more. And this comes off the heels of, like, they've raised their prices. They're going to raise their price again. And now it's okay, now you can't share. So we're going to try and get more people paying that same monthly, 15, I think $21 is what's coming up next. And we're getting the same quality for more, for spending more on it. And, to come from all the choices you could possibly want, $8.99, no ads, and then to go and say, you know what, we might actually start introducing ads if you want to pay less. They're going back on everything that they presented as their unique, brand. And that's telling me that maybe this isn't a successful business model. One of the things that as an actor, you have to sort of deal with is that streaming presented new media contracts. New media was this sort of blanket term that they invented when streaming came out, because they said, well, it's not television and there aren't ads, so we can't really say that it works like television. But if you're an actor, new media contracts.
New media concept. Okay.
So if you're an actor and your content runs on, Comedy Central, and there are commercials, you get paid residuals because every time you distract people with your content, they get to see a bunch of ads. The advertisement is what gets you paid, for your work time and time again.
Mhm.
With Netflix, they notoriously had kind of this black box around like how many people were watching their content, and they don't make their money from advertising, they make it from subscriptions. So if you have billions of people spending billions every month, that goes into producing your own content. But of course you have celebrities who bring their own money to the table to produce their own stuff. As an actor right now, you put your content out there and you get sort of what's the word? Wow.
You get like an
Totally drawing a blank
upfront
here.
payment. I mean, Netflix doesn't
Well,
really
you
do
get
profit sharing, you know?
no, but
Yeah.
you get an estimated residual, which is
Yeah.
we think this many people, but they don't actually
Quote.
give you the real numbers.
Mm.
So we don't know how well anything on Netflix does in terms of the numbers. And that affects the number of people get, how much people get paid. That affects who comes back for a second season. But a lot of this is hype and people just buying into the hype. I think right now we're seeing that they're losing more money than they're making, and they're scrambling to come up with ways to cover their losses.
Right. So
Also,
I agree
yeah.
with you there. I'm sorry, Max, you're gonna say something? Max, you're gonna say
No,
something?
go ahead. No, it's all right.
No, I was just gonna say it is that exactly their business model is something that was always sort of like a ticking clock, if you will, because I'm sure they knew like eventually this growth will slow down. And the whole idea of every time it used to come up like, hey, Netflix says they'll never have ads. Netflix says, they will always drop shows all at once and stuff. And I'm like, look, Stranger Things, the new season is coming out in 2 parts. They're not dropping
Mhm.
it all at once because they know like at least they can somewhat extend. And it's sort of like managing expectation now, because I think if they decided to all of a
Really?
sudden
I actually
say,
had no idea.
yeah,
They
they're doing
split
part
their
one at one
season.
time and then
Wow.
part two is gonna come later, rather than doing every episode all at once. So they're sort of like, I think they're slowly dragging us to the weekly schedule because they don't want to just flip the switch. But also they've been spending like 150% of what they make on content, and that's simply not sustainable because they've never, I think, throughout those 10 years that they weren't losing subscribers, they've never been in the black. They've always run in the red, and they just constantly kept getting subscribers. They were expanding into new markets and everything. But what
And then
happened
pandemic
here?
happened.
Come again?
Let's not forget about pandemic, because when the pandemic hit, that's when everyone's
Yeah.
subscribers kind of went up.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, you look at the numbers, right? Like in 2020, like they finally crossed the 200 million mark, and you could see a large majority of that is international markets. So like it matters that they're expanding, and they do have a lot of regional content now. But the problem I think they still have is they have an unsustainable business model. It's business 101. You can't spend more than you're making. You're never gonna like survive for too long unless somebody keeps pumping money. And right now Wall Street is like starting to realize that hold on, here's the thing. If their only source of revenue is subscriptions, and those subscriptions stop growing, that means they have hit their ceiling and they can only go down from there. So therefore the money is going to stop flowing. So you saw they lost billions. I think the number I saw was like 54 billion or something like that. Like they lost that much market value within like a day. The day that they, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, that they dropped their quarter one results, where that projected they were going to get like a growth of 2 something odd million subscribers, and they lost 200,000. And now for quarter two they're predicting they're going to lose another 2 million. And that to me says, okay, they had to realign their expectations internally, and now they're probably over projecting the loss numbers, because the reason why they lost 200,000 is not because they just lost 200,000. They actually got a lot of new subscribers, hundreds of thousands of new subscribers in different markets, but overall it was a net negative. And I think you're starting that now. Netflix is like, okay, 10 years of living in paradise is over. Now we have to get real and start to really figure out like how we're gonna hedge our bets. So Max, you
And what's
mentioned that they're
interesting,
getting into gaming. Sorry, go ahead.
well, yeah, there's that. Well, quickly, I just wanted to say what's interesting about that move is that they're returning, they're going back on their word. Basically, is they're saying, you know what, this business model doesn't work. We promised you a future where this was the future, and now we're going back to past models of, you know, monetizing content, and they're going back to weekly schedules, ads, and, you know, charging more and getting, you basically going back on the idea that you can share an account, which is how a lot of people watch.
Is
Max, go
this
ahead, though.
business? I just got a question to you guys, because you guys, I know you have more streaming services than I do, but like, is that business model similar to anything that's already out there, like Disney Plus or HBO Max?
Everybody lets you share across households. It's the fact that they're suddenly saying that we can't is basically, to me, it signals like, hey, we're running out of money. We need, I know we've been lenient about this before. Could you please also pay if you're in
Yeah.
a different house?
And what
I
about
think
ads?
ads, well, Hulu has ads, an ad tier.
Mhm.
You can pay more if you don't want ads. HBO is always advertising their other content um, before you watch any of their shows.
Yeah.
And, you know, Disney keeps growing, and, you know, they put their stuff out in theaters also, and they almost don't need that. Just becomes the host for, you know, Marvel movies once
That's
they've already
yeah.
left
That's
theaters.
their
Yeah.
one direct to custom. That's their one direct to customer vertical, whereas everything else is sort of like, they're studio releasing movies and goes through uh, distribution and theaters, and whereas with Disney Plus they can reach their customers directly. So it's but like you said, they're diversified. Like Disney has parks, like that's a big chunk of their revenue. They have obviously the movie studio. They do a lot of television, like ESPN, ABC. They got like a lot of television IP, and then they have Disney Plus. Like Disney Plus is only a part of the equation. HBO Max is the same. Warner Media, or now Warner Brothers Discovery, they have like 20 different things, and HBO Max is one of those things. And like now we
Yeah.
saw earlier this week that CNN Plus, a month into its existence, is going to be shut down, and because the old ownership is what really launched it. The new ownership just took charge a week ago or a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, yeah, you know what? We don't need CNN Plus. We need to simplify it for everybody. So we're gonna roll Discovery Plus and CNN Plus into HBO Max, and that's where they're going. But still, it's one part of their overall business strategy. Disney even has Hulu. Like they have Hulu, Disney Plus. They have ESPN Plus. They've got like they've hedged their bets. Apple and Amazon have money to burn, and it's like they're it's kind of like if you follow European soccer and you see like one of those Middle Eastern Gulf state princes go and buy a football team, and then all they do is just pump money in, and they don't care about like whether the club is like making a profit. It's
Yeah.
Amazon and Apple are like that. They're like, this is a playground for them because they got so much money to spend. They're doing a good job of strategy, but they're obviously don't have the same concerns as Netflix, whereas Netflix has sort of got the worst of it. They don't have money to burn. They don't have a diversified business model. They're spending way more than they're making. And
Yeah.
so I feel like they don't
Mm.
have like a backup plan. And that's probably the biggest thing that's going to hurt them. I pulled up this one graphic earlier. I want to just put it up very quickly and just give me your thoughts on this, because this is a projection of the market share Netflix has over the next few years. And you can see where they are now. By far, I think by themselves, they're almost dwarfing everybody else. But then you can see how that's projected to go down. And I think a lot of it has to do with that business strategy. I mean, what do you guys think about like just those other streaming services taking on a bigger chunk?
Well, you know, it's funny. Apple TV isn't represented on this at
No,
all.
yeah.
And from what I've seen, their content has been most consistently the highest quality. I know based on Disney's recent controversy, a lot of people are canceling their subscriptions to Disney Plus. I think part of that anger and animus is probably going to affect Netflix. And, you know, I think right now it's up in the air who the leader could be. Netflix has been a leader in streaming, and this could mean that say that they do start charging people and cracking down on subscription sharing, maybe that starts being something that every single platform does. Or maybe the one that wins is the one that says, yeah, share. We got the best content. We're going to let you share. Hard to tell at this point.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of put a period on it for now, though, I will say this. They lost 200,000 subscribers. It's like 0.09% of their subscription base. They still have like 3 times almost the subscribers of Disney Plus, their closest competitor. And so they're still in a very advantageous position. I don't think this is like gloom and doom, the place is burning down bad, but it just means that this is a wake up call, in my opinion at least, that Netflix needs to change the way it does business, because otherwise, whereas now it's a wake up call, tomorrow it may be bankruptcy. Like I think they have to change tact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Was
wonder if this means a return to the traditional model, or some kind of hybrid where you can subscribe to cable channels on
A
TV.
package. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the nice things about just traditional television was turning it on and discovering something that you weren't expecting to see because it was on. Pluto is really good for that.
Tubi. We're gonna talk about a
Tubi.
Bruce Willis Tubi movie later.
That sounds
Yeah.
good. But yeah, it's we might be ending or exiting the streaming bubble right now.
Yeah.
There
I mean,
might be an
Peacock has
illusion.
live channels, and that's like I love just put it on and just let
Wow.
it run. And it's a
That's
streaming
cool.
service. Sorry, Mag.
Has there
Yeah.
been a change in like leadership or like in management at the Netflix, or is there going to be? What do
I
you
don't
guys
think so. I mean, they've had the same leadership for a while. I don't think that's changing much. I think if the next like quarter 2 report comes out and then they continue to slide, especially if their projections come true and they lose 2 million subscribers or anywhere close to it, I think then they're going to start thinking about, okay, you had 3 months to get your shit together and do something about it, and then they'll start to feel the pressure from the investors. But until then, I mean, there's still such a big, like I said, they're still like 50% of the market, right? So they're still
Yeah.
so big. It's going to take a lot longer for them to truly die out, but or become like a secondary player, because right now they're still like the David and everybody else. Sorry, they're still the Goliath and everybody else is David in the streaming market. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, I think that brings us to the end of that